right, so moving on to our next asset here, we are going to work on the ladder tool. All right, and this one's going to be kind of cool because what we're not going to have to actually do a lot of base construction of the shapes or anything because we've already done that and we created all those tools, the bolt and the wood plank and the wood post. We created all those tools as nodes themselves, so we can just reuse that work basically. So we don't have to model the basic shapes anymore or lay out the UVs or do anything or place the bolts or anything like that. So let's get started. So I'm going to call this the ladder video. And what I want to do is jump inside, delete the file node. And now in the guard tower menu option in the tab menu, I just went through and kind of cleaned it all up because I was getting a little all over the place with the tab menu. So I put them all in guard tower. So we have the wood post, wood plank, and the bolt shape. So the first thing that I want to do is just drop down the wood post, and I'm going to change the taper. I don't actually really want any taper for this. Okay, and I think this is going to work just fine. We might want to make the size just a little bit smaller for the ladder because we're just going to reuse it. And the nice thing is all the UVs are laid out for us. We can change the division. So we've made a procedural asset here that we can reuse. Cool. So the first thing I want to do for the ladder is create the height line. So I'm going to drop down a line node, and I'm just going to call it the height line. And this is going to control the height, obviously, of the ladder. So let's make it around 2 meters or 6 feet, right? And then what I want to do is I want another line, and this line is going to be the width line. So let's call it the width line, and just for consistency's sake there. All right, so on the width line, what we want to do is copy the 2 posts first. So let's drop down a copy to points node. Cool. And that is not what I want. And that's because we need to actually set up the width line. I need it pointing on the X direction and 0 on the Y. That way the ladder is always facing in the positive Z. All right, and what I want to do is take the length, copy that parameter, and put it into the relative reference. Multiply it by 0.5 and negate that, and it'll set that line into the center of the world there, which is exactly what we want. All right, so now when we look at our posts, we are looking good. So we can control the width of the ladder now with this line. All right, and we want to control the height of the ladder with this line. So I'm going to copy the length parameter here and paste that into the size Y of our wood post tool. So now we're starting to utilize the parameters that we set up. And voila, we already have 2 posts. It's already setting the width of the ladder, and we have all of our UVs. All the randomization and all the bevels are taken care of us. Again, we can change the divisions, and you could go and change all the different parameters here. So everything's working out quite nicely for us. We could even maybe change the global offset here. Make it even more, so you can make it more rounded type of ladder or more square. It's pretty cool. Okay, and if you ever need any more parameters, just say allow editing of contents by right-clicking on the node and go into the node and expose more parameters as you need them, kind of thing. All right, so let's now take care of the ladder steps. So for that, I'm going to utilize the wood plank shape. All right, and I did go in and add a few more options to this particular node. So I added a bolts option. And so what that does is it allows you to assign a particular type of bolt. In this case, I'm just going to utilize the bolt shape generator that we made. All right, so this creates a bolt for us. And what I'm going to do is provide it to the bolt object here. So I'm going to just assign it the bolt shape. There we go. So now if we look at our wood plank, we have the bolts all set up for us. So we could control the offset of where we want them and their overall scale relative to the plank. Okay, so let's get this all set up such that we are copying the steps to points on a line. So what I need to do is utilize this height line and just add some more points to this. Okay, so this, well, actually, let's leave this one at 2, and let's put a resample down. This will just kind of isolate out the 2 operations there. So I'm going to set this to maximum segments, and we'll set it to something like 5 by default. So what I want to do now is just grab all those inner points. So I'm going to do a group by range. Okay, and give it a name. So I'm going to call this inner points. Set it to points, the group type, and we'll just change that range there, and we get those inner points. And that's just because I don't want to copy a step at the ends of the line. Okay, so I'm going to drop down another copy to points here. Oh, first we need to blast the points. So let's get rid of those ends by inverting the blast there. So now we shouldn't have those 2 endpoints. And let's copy a wood plank shape to it. Cool. All right, so we are all set up almost. So now, I just organize this. So now what I want to do is just go into my wood plank tool here and just mess around with the scale of all these things. And that is looking pretty good so far. And it looks like the bolts aren't sitting necessarily on top, so I'll fix that a little bit later. I think we all get the idea here. I'm going to make the bolts a little bit smaller as well. And I kind of like the divisions. It's giving it a nice, it's breaking it up nicely. So I'm going to leave the divisions the way it is. And what we need to do is connect the size X, so this length, to that width line. So I'm going to copy that length and put that into the size X here. And now that'll be the size of the ladder, which now means I need to make these guys a little bit smaller there, like so. And you can always set up a relationship between the 2. Very cool. I think that'll work nicely. And then let's just merge these together, see where we're at. All right, so these 2 guys. And there we go. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the steps are sitting forward, first off in Z. And the bolts are definitely, so I'm going to edit this here and just see what's going on really quickly. So if we step through, what I did is I was raycasting these guys to the actual plank shape. So this right here, oh, and it's just because these guys are all the way behind. That is odd. And you know what I'll probably have to do, I might edit this out, but I'm going to make sure that when we get to this point, we're going to transform this. So it's going to be $CEX, $CEY, and $CEZ. Just make sure we're centered appropriately. And then pass that into these guys. And that really offset them. So I'll fix that here in just a little bit. It was working before. Anyways, so moving on. The nice thing about this is we can actually now just remove the bolt shape here. And it just goes away. So if you don't need bolts, then there you go. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to situate the steps in front of the posts themselves. So what I'm going to do is do a transform. All right. And what I want to do is make them sit in front. So we're just going to get, first, we want to situate ourselves. So we want to do a $ZMin and negate that. And then we want to push it. So we're going to say plus the BB box from the copy to points 1, and we want the DZ max. There we go. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is just apply a little bit of offset to this. So I'm going to say plus something like 0.1, and then I can use the ladder to just push that out a little bit more. All right, there we go. We now have a ladder. Just adjust the bevel there. Cool. So now you can go and use a for each loop, right, and start to randomize all the parameters here. So that way you get a different shape. But the nice thing is that everything's all UV'd for us already, and we literally just took about 10 minutes to make a ladder, and we didn't have to do that much work. And also I could do a UV layout now. All right, there we go. And I want to do correct area proportions, and this time I'm going to do a fixed scale because I'm just going to tile shared materials here. So that'll just give me some nice random UV shells there. There we go. Okay, so that concludes this first video. In the next video, we are going to pull this into Unity and just see how everything's working. Okay, thanks so much.